Welcome to the fourth keynote of the International Research Conference. Today with me is Professor Dr. Mihai Mutascu from the University of Timișoara in Romania. And today he's going to talk about artificial intelligence and unemployment. Professor Mutascu, Mihai, it's your turn now. Maybe introduce yourself a little bit further, and then I'm very delighted and I'm very looking forward to the presentation you're going to hold.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank for your kind invitation, and second, I would like to congratulate all the participants, organizers, and Zeppelin University for this amazing event. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You did a good job. And also a special thanks and special congrats for our colleague, my friend Florian Horky. He did a great job there, and all people there. Okay, I'm professor of public economics at West University in Timișoara. In Romania, I also serve as a full professor of economics in Paris, International Business School in Paris. And starting with last year, September, I also serve as invited visiting professor to Zeppelin University. So, my talk today is about artificial intelligence and unemployment. In fact, it's a talk about impact of artificial intelligence on unemployment. I had this idea of research several years ago. Then I read an article in a newspaper in the magazine called The Bottom Line Personal, wrote by Vasily Leontiev in 1983, when this guy had a problem with machine and horses. And I tried to cite them in this way. Leontiev said that there was an analogous problem with horses. They became unnecessary with the advent of tractors, automobiles, and trucks, and a farmer could not keep his horses and postponed to change the tractors by feeding them less off. So he got rid of the horses and used the more productive tractor. After all, this doesn't precipitate a political problem since the horses don't vote. So having in mind this article, I tried to find more and more vision in respect to machine, I'm sure horses, but I found completely different approaches. And for example, in 2050, in a journal called Foreign Affairs, there is many point of view in respect to this nexus, artificial intelligence and unemployment. For example, Karl Marx, you know Karl Marx, said that the future capitalism is based on the automation of proletariat, while Keynes introduced an equation electrification and internal combustion engine. Keynes claimed that if we work with electricity, if we work with engine, we can improve the productivity, okay, we can stimulate economic growth, but there is a problem because such approach can generate technological unemployment. Finally, a triad of scientists were worried about this process of automation, appearance of the machine, and wrote a paper to the United States President Lyndon Johnson, claiming that the subordination results in a system of almost unlimited productive capacity. Therefore, on this, let's say, ground of point of view, I found also that if we discussed about artificial intelligence, this seems to be a part of automation process. And it's not only the part of automation process, seems to be the peak of this process. And what is very important to understand that this artificial intelligence had huge implication in the labor market, and more precisely because it influenced the productivity. So, therefore, I try to investigate how the artificial intelligence influenced unemployment. To support my conclusion, I have a theoretical model. I will show you in a couple of minutes my theoretical model. It's not very big deal, just a simple model. And after that, I in parallel, I reinforce these theoretical results from the model with empirical study. Regarding the empirical part, my estimation follow the panel models. I have a GMM system estimation. I use a GMM system estimator with 23 developed countries covering the period 1998 to 2016. The main results clearly show that between artificial intelligence and unemployment, we have a nonlinear connection. And the main point here is that if you try to accelerate the use of artificial intelligence in your work, you will generate more productivity, you can reduce your cost, the price fall, it can stimulate growth, and that growth will absorb from the market unemployment. In fact, you will generate more and more jobs. For sure that this happened with one condition, and that condition is to have a low level of prices. Otherwise, for the high prices, the result seems to be neutral, okay? So we cannot expect for the high prices that artificial intelligence to reduce unemployment. You will see exactly at the end of this presentation the full result. I propose you 7 parts, but don't worry, they're the short part, okay? I will start with introduction, some literature review, sure, the theoretical model, the core of this presentation, empirical part, results, robustness check, and finally, I will conclude. I'm going now to the introduction. It's clear that artificial intelligence has an implication on labor market, pass through the productivity, because if we use the artificial intelligence, generally the researchers accept that you can improve your productivity. Improving your productivity, this generates huge movement in labor supply side. But to be very clear, there is another point of view saying that, okay, artificial intelligence not all time stimulate, increase, okay, productivity. Another researchers say, no, if you use artificial intelligence, not all time you can enhance your growth, okay? So just to be to have the result from this approach. Okay, so having this implication, sure that the main worry of the people is what happens if you use artificial intelligence in terms of our jobs. We will lose our jobs or not? What happens in terms of employment? So having this ground, I try to connect the concept, okay? And I think that at least 2 main transmission channel, theoretical channel can be described here. And those channels use as ground the labor productivity. The first one, I call this, it's called the displacement effect. It's a positive one. What happened in this situation? The use of artificial intelligence reduce unemployment. Why? Because using artificial intelligence, you can improve your productivity, you reduce your cost, okay? You can stimulate demand generate growth, that generate more and more jobs. So artificial intelligence in this channel is good for labor market because you obtain more and more jobs. Unfortunately, there is another channel. This is called the replacement effect channel with negative effect. In this situation, if you work with artificial intelligence, instead to generate growth, you will just replace your existing jobs. In fact, nothing happened. By contrary, you can provoke unemployment. Okay, that is the, let's say, the negative, the pessimist vision of connection. Okay, the empirical part, I targeted not all the country in the world, but just only the high-tech and developed country. Why? Because only that country obtaining very good performance in terms of innovation and automation. Okay, so that I have only that country. And moreover, besides 20 OECD country members, I introduced 3 non-OECD members with very nice results in terms of automation, okay, innovation, China, Russia, and Singapore. So this is the target for empirical part. Now, several words about the literature. Reviewing the literature, there's many papers. okay, with different target, with a different methodology, data sets, with both theoretical and empirical models, but sure with heterogeneous results. And I try to identify three strands of such literature. The first one is devoted to the displacement effect. So in this case, we have the positive effect of artificial intelligence on unemployment. So artificial intelligence reduce unemployment. I mentioned here let's say the seminal contribution from my point of view of Albus in 1983. He claimed that by using the artificial intelligence, automation will generate a new market, and that market will create new jobs, absorbing unemployment. Some similar vision offer Boden and Trehan, first in 1987, the second one in 2003, claiming that, okay, will it be just a small disturbance, but after that, during the labor market equilibrium, but after that, everything will be fine. So you will reduce unemployment if you accentuate the use of artificial intelligence. A very nice paper offered Frey Obsbull in 2017. He found that, in fact, this artificial intelligence influenced asymmetrically the sector. He said that we have a sector with high skill to be automatized, with low skill to be automatized. So it's good to be in that part with a low risk to be automatized. We can discuss if you want about this papers, very nice papers. And during the time, we know exactly the sector prone to be less or more automatized. And finally, I mentioned here the paper of Su 2018, a recent paper, to say that, okay, we can admit that artificial intelligence reduce the number of jobs, but finally the government will intervene in the market, trying to correct this failure and improve the number of jobs, reducing the unemployment. The second strand of the literature is that we're devoted to replacement effect. In this case, we have a negative correlation between AI and artificial intelligence and unemployment. Absolutely, I mentioned here the contribution of Leontiev in 1983. Okay, we know already. Leontiev say, okay, it's bad stuff. We cannot do that because artificial intelligence accelerate unemployment. Another vision offered, for example, Zeira in 1998. He tried to explain why this happened and sustain that if you innovate more, you will use more capital as a factor of production, reducing the need for labor force. So in this way, you generate more unemployment. Bessen, this is very nice papers, in two versions, 2018, 2020, say that, okay, it's important to have this link, but it's important also to assume or to investigate the elasticity of demand. He offers a solution here. He said that, okay, if your demand on the labor is very elastic, what means this, if the price modify, you have huge reaction of demand, okay? So in this situation, for example, if you accelerate the use of artificial intelligence, you really raise the productivity, you reduce the cost, you reduce the price, and the lower price, elasticity is very, very high. So at lower price, you decompress the demand, you absorb the labor force existing in the market. So this is a positive effect. Otherwise, for the rigid demand, nothing happened. Contrary, you can generate more unemployment. Another paper, for offered here in 2014, he introduced the idea that depend what kind of skills you have. So he concluded that the low-skilled workers seems to be more affected by the artificial intelligence use. So it's not good to be a worker with low skill. It's good to have a high skill. Okay, this is the conclusion of her. Another paper. Climate decision, managerial decision is very important. The paper of Stiglitz and Rubini in the same year 2040. Atkinson, for example, say, okay, it's not a problem, but in fact, we should be careful because there is a movement over the sector. So the first sector more affected by artificial intelligence will be agriculture. And after that, we have the services. So it's not good to be in this moment in agriculture, to work in agriculture sector. So this is the conclusion of Atkinson. And finally, the famous paper of Acemoglu and Restrepo. There are many, many papers, but in 2018, 2019, who claim that acceleration of artificial intelligence will reduce the labor demand. We will not stimulate demand. They reduce the labor, the national income, sorry, and this will generate not only disturbance in terms of jobs, but also inequality in terms of revenue. And sure, for this situation, he claimed that the productivity will reduce. So we have a negative impact. Okay. The third strand, I will finish the literature review here. I mentioned two authors. The first one is author, okay, from 2015. He said that in fact we should have a cautionary approach if we discuss about artificial intelligence. Why? Because in fact this automation process will not change the job, will replace in fact the task related to that job. So the effect is neutral. We not discuss the replacement of job, but the replacement of task assimilated to that job. It's something similar. Introduced the idea of job-to-job effect. Okay, Berryman and Hauswald in 2015, saying that it's just a replacement. A new created job will be will absorb a new created job. Okay, will be compensated. Will compensate the old one, something like this. So it's job-to-job effect. Okay, some gap here. First, there are just few papers investigating the nonlinear effect between artificial intelligence and unemployment, and also just few of them use as main ingredient the level of prices, more precisely the inflation. Okay. Now I propose you to develop my model. Don't worry, again, it's not a big deal. My colleague from economics will see that it's a simple model. In fact, I combine two laws, let's say laws. The first one is the Phillips effect, and the second one is Okun law. The Phillips effect, called the Phillips curve, maybe you already studied this, what say that if all time you have a high inflation, the number of unemployment reduce. If you have a low inflation, the number of employment increases. So we have an inverse connection between inflation and unemployment. Okay, this is the Phillips curve. Okun connects output with unemployment and claim that for higher output, you have a low level of unemployment and vice versa. In fact, we have an inverse connection in both situations. So first part of the model is exactly the Phillips curve effect, if you want. Then equation one is very clear. In the left side, we have the inflation, okay, expected inflation. And the right side, we have unemployment and natural rate of unemployment. So this difference is called the gap, okay? So we have inflation gap and unemployment gap, the cyclical component, okay? And this alpha with minus represent the coefficient, the Phillips coefficient. More precisely, if unemployment increases, you see, because we have minus in front, this means that the left side falls. So high unemployment, reduce inflation, and vice versa. Also, what I did, I convert this inflation in terms of prices. So I have the prices in the moment t minus 1, prices t as expected value, t minus 1. And after that, I extract it for equation 2, the price in moment t, which is this one from here, okay? Equation 3. Further, next step, I have developed the Okun law. Now, in the left side, you can see that I introduced the output. We have the Y, which represents the output, and Y star is the potential output. The difference represents the gap, also the output gap. And on the right side, I have the employment, and with minus beta represent the Okun coefficient. The same idea. If this right side increases, you can see that the left side fall because we have minus here. So the inverse connection. Good. What I did further, I replaced it, this difference from equation 4 in equation 3 here, over here, and I obtained it in equation 5. Herein, I selected exactly what you say, this part, alpha times pt minus 1 over beta times pt expected times y star, okay. I noted this with phi, and after that, I isolate the alpha. With that alpha, I replace this in equation 2, here, the alpha, and finally I obtain this equation, okay, from here. And now, because I need to introduce my artificial intelligence, what I did, I tried to control the output, potential output from here, so the Y star. How? Very simple. I know that the output is the product between employed person, okay, times productivity, and which one the potential productivity. We know the potential productivity is total production of the number of workers if one. And here I consider that this active population, employee population, it's equal between eta, represented the ratio employee person, times P is the total population in the country. And after that, I consider the potential output, this one, okay, to be output, potential output without contribution of artificial intelligence times this omega. And this omega represents, in fact, the use, the level of use, the amount of, the volume of use of artificial intelligence. If you see here, if omega is 1, for example, okay, it's higher than 1 or equal to 1, for 1 omega, what I have without contribution, my output, potential output without contribution artificial intelligence is the same with the contribution with artificial intelligence. So I don't have the contribution, I don't have the use of artificial intelligence. If artificial intelligence increases, or this omega increases, it's clear that the left side increases. So more artificial intelligence I use, I obtain a very good performance in terms of output gap. So here we have that optimistic vision saying that if you use artificial intelligence, you can improve your productivity. Good. I replace it everything and obtain this equation here, and now we have a very nice conclusion. If you look at this equation, we have omega here. If this omega increases, what means we use more and more artificial intelligence, we use automation, okay? This report here fall, okay? If this report here fall, the left side fall, okay? Only if this difference here is negative. Why? Because this difference is negative. I have minus times minus becomes plus. If this increases, this falls, sorry, the left side will fall also. So I found the first results. If I use artificial intelligence and the inflation level is lower than expected one, so I have a low level of inflation, I will reduce my unemployment. So you can reduce your unemployment only if the level of price is very, very low. Okay, this is the first conclusion. The second one, otherwise, if this difference is positive, what means positive? My level of price is higher than expected one, so I have inflation. That means that if this omega increases, this report will fall. Following the report, I have minus, left side becomes plus. So instead to reduce unemployment for the high level of prices, I will stimulate unemployment. Okay, I will reduce my rate of participation. Okay, I will not generate new jobs. You can see that here we have different effect. Even if you increase your artificial intelligence use, you can reduce or raise your unemployment based with this condition of level of prices. So for a level of prices, we have good things, okay, but high level of prices, we have a negative effect. Now, what I did finally, I linearized this equation here in the log form, is this one from here, in order to prepare my empirical part. Okay, to be very brief in empirical part, I have a dependent variable unemployment ratio, okay, as independent interest variable, we have artificial intelligence. This is very difficult to be captured, okay? So in this case, I have two scenarios I use as a proxy for the artificial intelligence. We can discuss about the artificial intelligence pattern by applicant residents and artificial intelligence pattern by inventor residents. So I have two scenarios. And sure, the control variable inspired by my theoretical model, I have the inflation, total population, labor productivity, and also I introduced to control the size of economy. Okay, I have here the size of economy and also the openness of that economy. I use the foreign direct investment or the variable elasticity. In respect to tool, I don't want to spend much more time here because maybe are not interesting. It's a panel approach with threshold. So I have a threshold which is controlled by my inflation. Do you remember my model? We have the effect because of inflation. Inflation gives your effect, okay? So I have this threshold controlled by inflation, and I obtain two regime coefficient of unemployment, okay? So if you have one threshold, we have two regime. If you have two threshold, we have three regime, and so on. What I obtained first, I tested to see how many thresholds I have. I found that only one threshold works. So I have one threshold with two different regimes. So in this moment, I'm in a good way to confirm my theoretical model. And look the results. The first regime coefficient under the threshold is negative significant in all scenarios. So if I raise artificial intelligence, I reduce my unemployment because my dependent variable is unemployment. And also I confirm here that in all scenarios, you see, we don't have for the second regime coefficient significant. That means we have a neutral effect. So the high level of inflation, the effect is neutral for artificial intelligence on unemployment. Also, I note here that the minus sign for in all scenarios for inflation confirm the Phillips curve, so high inflation, low unemployment. Some similar results also for the second variable. By using artificial intelligence parted by inventor residence, we can see that we obtain the same results with a minus for the first regime, no significance for the second regime, inflation. Here and more, all scenarios are with minus. I have two not significant, but with minus, so I confirm the Phillips curve. And finally, to check for robustness, I add one more method in order to deal with endogeneity, if any, okay? So with the same controls, I use the GMM system and I introduce the dummy. So I have a dummy variable under the threshold, okay? I know the threshold, I calculated the threshold. One, if the value is higher than the threshold and zero otherwise, and dummy over the threshold, okay? The same idea, one, if the level of price is higher than the threshold and zero otherwise. I confirm exactly the results I obtained for the threshold model, panel model, Al-Hansen, okay? We can see the first regime coefficient with minus in both scenarios and the neutral results for the second scenario. And now I prepare my conclusion, okay? First, it's for sure that we have a nonlinear relationship between artificial intelligence and unemployment, which is controlled by the level of inflation. I found that for the low level of inflation, okay, if I use artificial intelligence, this will generate more productivity. I reduce the cost. I have the low prices. I can enhance the economic growth, stimulate the new jobs. So the effect is positive in this situation. And moreover, very important, the Phillips effect disappear under the condition of artificial intelligence. This is a very, very nice result. And also, I found that and moreover here, it doesn't mean that if you use less artificial intelligence, okay, under the low level of prices, you will generate unemployment. No, we have the same effect, the replacement effect, the displacement effect, but with low magnitude. In fact, if you use more or less artificial intelligence for the low level of prices, there is not any switch between the effect, okay? You reduce unemployment, but with different magnitude. And separately, for high level of prices, okay, in this case, the effect is neutral, okay? Why? Because if you use artificial intelligence, okay, normally you reduce your opportunity cost, okay? But for the high level of prices, your demand is very rigid, so you cannot decompress your demand to stimulate the growth. The effect is contrary, okay? In the same way, here, the Phillips curve is not validated. Very nice figure from my point of view, sure, here about the result. It summarizes exactly what I did. You can see that vertical X, we have unemployment. I'm finishing 1 minute. Unemployment, and the horizontal X, we have the level of prices. And if you look here, this level P is expected level price, expected inflation. Here it's very clear for if the level of inflation is lower than expected level, so we have a level of prices, it's clear that if you raise the prices, you see we have a higher unemployment, okay, that this unemployment reduce, okay, it fall, but for this point here, he start to rise. But in this part, because I think this dotted line, we have a neutral effect. It's exactly what I demonstrated further, okay? In my demonstration for the high level of prices, okay, the demand seems to be very rigid and that cannot stimulate the economic growth, okay, because the level of price is very, very high. So in both situations, the Phillips effect, it's neutralized. Some policy implication, and I finish. I'm sure that it's very important for the country with low level of inflation to use more and more artificial intelligence to improve the labor market by generating more jobs, and a cautionary approach should be followed by the country with quite high inflation, because the effect seems to be let's say neutral or not conclusive, okay. Yes, there are many theories in terms of innovation and growth and employment, automation, but this is my my research. So thank you very much. That was all, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mihai. It was a very insightful presentation on the topic of unemployment and artificial intelligence. And as you can guess, there are already some questions popping up in the YouTube stream. The first one is, will the pandemic influence these elasticities, or possible, or is it possible that they even replace them?
Okay, so first, in order to offer the feedback, first of all, in my paper, I didn't capture the pandemic. You know, my data finished in 2019. But if we discuss about pandemic, we need to make the difference between the sort of disturbance, okay? If we try to compare with economic crisis, financial crisis, generally that crisis influence more demand part, okay? But if we discuss about pandemic generally influence more the supply side of the market. So we have a problem in supply side because of lockdown. We know the restriction. And I think that if we try to compare here the sector, because the question is related to the sector, the type of job, I think that there is a different risk in terms to be impacted by pandemic. We know that generally, I don't know, the restaurant services and that all in general the services, okay, with support the contact with your customers are more affected than another one. But if you look at the industry side, there are not many. So I am optimistic from this point of view, because many colleagues said that yeah, we'll have a huge problem. The world passed a huge crisis. Now I am a little bit optimist for this point of view, but for sure I think that that pandemic generate more unemployment, and that sector with high risk in this condition. And if you put together also the risk of automation, because we discussed the risk of automation, I recommend the person who asked the question, to put a question, to read the paper of Fred and Obsboon. They try to classify those sectors. So, for example, the agriculture is the sector with the high risk to be automatized. With the low risks, for example, is the teaching. My job. Okay, I'm a teacher, so they have a very low risk to be automatized. I mean, we can discuss it in many such levels. But I think that pandemic has an asymmetrical influence on the labor market. So they're not a uniform one. That's for sure. I hope I read the point. I take the point. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, maybe a little add up from my side. I was in your lecture last week, and you presented us a chart with automation after the 29 crisis, the financial crisis. Can you reckon that something similar might happen to the way AI is introduced in in any workplace, or do you think this is impossible?
Very good your point. In fact, if you look, we discussed, if you remember, about elasticity of demand for different sector, and we found that 100 years ago there is a huge elasticity, especially for manufacturing sector. So if you reduce your prices, you have a huge reaction in terms of demand. But currently, for many sector, they're already mature sector, mature market. Okay, so the elasticity of demand is very rigid. So we cannot expect, if you try to improve your productivity, okay, it doesn't matter if you use automation or something else, to generate more jobs. Okay, so for that sector, I think there is a problem. In the same way, if you relate with the economic crisis, the same idea, that the effect it's asymmetrical. We don't have the same effect across all the sector. And it's important to understand that the sector with demand very rigid are more prone to generate more unemployment. Okay, we can discuss that about what kind of sector, if you want or not. But
yeah, maybe we should tackle the questions in the stream first. The next one is actually also very important, in my opinion. How do you think that people with less education will be impacted by the introduction of IE and digitalization?
Mm-hmm. Here, this is a very nice question, because if I remember, we discussed in the paper, okay? There is many paper trying to investigate. If you remember, there is a paper of Acemoglu and Restrepo, I mentioned there. They say that it's not only about job, because you lose your job. Okay, it's not only the job, it's also the asymmetrical effect you impose on the revenue you generate inequality. And a strand of literature exclusively tried to explain what kind of job are more prone to be affected. For example, if you have a low education, if I remember, I don't know, high school or less than high school, okay, the percentage to be replace it as a work, it's around, I don't know, 40 or 60%. So from 100 jobs, okay, requiring low education, okay, from 100 jobs, 18 jobs can be replaced by machine. But if you have high education, okay, more than, I don't know, graduate, there is a zero probability to be replaced. So it's very important, not only the education, but also the income. Okay, so if you gain more, probability to be replaced by machine is very low. If you gain less, for example, less than $20 per hour, I think, if I remember the paper exactly, the probability is very high to be replaced by machine. So we have both such approach in terms of education level and income level. Okay, but it's not good. Do not have education, minimal level education. Just try to learn and to be more and more educated. If you are educated, there is the risk to be replaced by machine is almost zero.
Yeah, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Learning is power as well.
By the way, I interrupt you. Do you know there is a Nelson Mandela who said that the stronger tool to fight is not the weapon, is the education. Do you know this? This is very nice example.
Yeah.
Just try to be educated.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is something I think all people, and especially all people in our university, are living up to right now, to strive to be better, to learn, and to improve oneself. And yeah,
exactly.
Is definitely a point there. So let's go to the next question. Does this require demand to increase, or does cost decrease via IE enough to maintain unemployment?
Okay, just to be thank you very much. Just to be very clear, if you use artificial intelligence, my assumption, my paper is that you generate more productivity, okay? But again, can be also the contrary. There is many researchers who say that if you use artificial intelligence, you reduce your productivity. Okay, if you increase your productivity, you have the capacity to reduce your cost. So you have additional stimulus to reduce your cost based on improvement in terms of productivity. If the price fall, okay, for the level of price, generally there is a, let's say, it's not a rule, but we accept that on a low price, your demand is very, very elastic. If your price is quite high, okay, your demands start to be rigid because it had a lot of money to pay for that good. So the reaction is very, 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 very small. Okay, if you want in an old industry, generally we can accept that industry to have a quite high prices because of cost. Okay, demand is very rigid. That industry, old industry, are more prone to be automatized and to generate unemployment. For example, in manufacturing, textile industry, do you remember for our lecture, we have a steel industry, very prone to be automatized, but not automobile. Automobile in 10, 20 years will be in the same level of dangers, to say. Otherwise, if the price is very, very low, demand is quite elastic. So this is the typical early stage of industry. So we have a new market, in fact, for for this point of view. So it's important to understand the elasticity of demand and the contribution of artificial intelligence. Again, in my approach, I consider that artificial intelligence improves the productivity, but this is not a rule. Okay, if it's the contrary, for sure you have completely different results. But someone can have a debate with me. Why you consider that? Yeah, we can discuss. Sure, I accept.
Yeah, maybe other questions will arise of your answer now. Yeah, there's actually directly a next one. What about the wage effects? Could they be included?
In my paper, I didn't control for the wages, but the people who asked, our colleague who asked, I can recommend the paper of Besson. Okay, do you remember the paper of Besson? It's exactly, we discussed about the same topic. Okay, paper of Besson, which he controlled exactly demand. Okay, the artificial intelligence. Okay, with participation, rate of participation by controlling by prices, elasticity of demand, and level of wages, because not only the elasticity of price on demand is important, also elasticity of wages on demand is important. In my cases, I use only the prices, and I suppose that if the prices increases, okay, I will lose the purchasing power and vice versa. It's just an intuition, but I don't have proof of that. But if that our colleague will read the paper of Besson, he will find exactly this stuff. It's exactly the same approach. No, I don't have in my paper the wages, but the wages can influence the result. Absolutely, yes. Because influence the purchasing power, okay? Mm. If you have a high inflation, you use the real wages, okay? The purchasing power fall. This is explanation, in fact, of Phillips curve, okay? Inverse connection.
Yeah, there's also a next question. You discussed how the Phillips curve, maybe, I'm very sorry, this is probably going to be the last question. You represented that the Phillips curve is that IE is counter affecting the Phillips curve. That means like low level of inflation also means low level of unemployment if introducing IE. Couldn't it be that like the data set you researched on and you presented us, couldn't it be that also government policies played a role in that? Because as far as I remember from my macroeconomics lessons, they also tend to temper a little bit with the Phillips curve.
Okay, for sure that we can discuss about the government intervention, and also the Phillips curves. The curves have different approaches. So we have the economic approaches, the monetary approaches. Okay, I didn't try to develop much more this effect because it's controversial. Okay, some of my colleagues said that the Phillips curves is not a big deal; it doesn't exist. But if you analyze, for example, United States of America, you will see a little bit this effect, but not for all period of time. But for sure that if we introduce in Phillips curve the type of approach, what kind of intervention you have? You have a text intervention, spelling intervention, you have a monetary vision, for sure that results changes, and maybe for sure that my results change because it's a model. The model have the condition. If you modify one condition, everything changes, okay? So sure that the approach of Philip Scarf influenced my results, absolutely. And the approach, not the Philip Scarf per se, the approach. We have the short run, long run, depends. I don't have that in my paper, honestly.
No, I just was curious because the nations you represented had also different economic policies. That's why I asked that. But I'm very sorry, Mihai. The time is running out. It was a pleasure to have you here. I think the keynote was very insightful. And yeah, thank you for representing, and thank you for discussing with us.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, my pleasure to present my research to the students. The students are my friends. Thank you very much. Pleasure. Anytime.